Good morning, everybody. Once again, you are here with us at Community Watch and Comment here on WPFW 89.3 FM. I am Larry Stafford Jr., your co-host with Dave Rabin, and I'm so glad to be with everybody this Tuesday morning once again. It's great to be with y'all. We have had some crazy developments in the world and certainly in our state as well. We'll get into some of the things going on at the state and local level. And yeah, we'll have an exciting guest today as well, because of course, everybody knows there were elections recently over the last few weeks. There were not only the federal elections at the presidential level, of course, but as we commonly do on this show, we are going to talk about some of the results at the local level, particularly in Prince George's County, Maryland, and what we can expect. And we have a special guest joining us, the recently elected Board of Education member for District 7 in Prince George's County, Dr. Phelton Moss. And so we're going to talk to him in just a bit about his vision for education in Prince George's County and a bit about why he ran and what he sees as being needed in the school system. And we'll go into some headlines as well right now, actually. So thank you once again for joining, y'all. And as always, you've got the ability to call in to the show. If you are interested in joining in on the conversation, if you've got a take on some of the either local or national election results, you can call in at 202-588-0893. Again, that is 202-588-0893. So first, we're going to dive into some of the headlines coming out of the state of Maryland. So first up, Maryland lawmakers are staring down a $2.7 billion budget deficit for this year. This is news being reported out of Maryland Matters, as well as, I believe, the Washington Post. This is the biggest gap that the state has seen in the past 20 years. And for some context, even during the Great Recession, things weren't looking quite as bad for the state's budget. Now, this isn't necessarily a sky is falling moment, but it's definitely a sign that tough decisions are coming in this upcoming legislative session. If you've followed the show and perhaps if you have also listened to our show that we did previously on Fridays, we've had quite a few conversations about the budget picture within the state. You know, we got to be real here that we can't let these decisions just fall on the backs of everyday working class Marylanders in our state. There is a lot of talk right now about cuts to many programs in the state, including cuts to some of the education investments that have been planned as well. But, you know, the real picture here is that for far too long in our state, of course, we have had the most wealthy and the most powerful corporations in the state getting off scot-free in many cases. And there's a lot of research demonstrating that particularly multi-state and multinational corporations who reap the benefits of, you know, having their services offered here in Maryland and making a lot of money here in Maryland are not paying Maryland taxes. In some cases at all, and certainly not at the levels that they should be. So in order to meet our budget shortfalls, you know, we have to be vocal that this does not need to fall all on everyday Marylanders who rely on public transportation, who rely on our public school system, who need help in the form of what social services, the meager social services that are offered. If we're not careful, these are cuts that are going to fall on our backs. So we need to be very vigilant in this upcoming session as they discuss the budget that's coming before them. In other news, in Prince George's County, Edmonston, the city of Edmonston, is actually leading the way on expanding democracy in their town. So they just approved a local voting rights for non-citizens and restored voting rights for returning citizens. So those come in from a previous stint of incarceration. So this is huge, especially as we see more communities challenging outdated restrictions and saying, hey, if you live here and you contribute to the community and care about what happens, you should have a say. So Edmonston is also joining cities like Greenbelt and Frederick, and I believe Hyattsville as well in this fight. And I got to say, it's inspiring to see Maryland paving the way on reforms such as this. Also, in other news, I want to cover something happening in Prince George's County as well. We have mentioned in the past on this show that the shuffle is on. So, another outcome of the election that happened for the U.S. Senate, I think, as many people know, the county executive for Prince George's County, Angela Alsobrooks, has won the election for the U.S. Senate seat. And as a result of that victory, there is going to be a shuffle for who will be the next county executive in Prince George's County. Today at the county council, it's my understanding, at least, that there will be a hearing on legislation that will determine how such an election will be conducted, if it is to be a special election. However, if the county executive, and this is my best understanding of the scenario that's playing out right now, if the county executive chooses to resign, I believe on or before December 2nd of this year, it will be an appointment process. And if she chooses to resign afterwards, there'll be a special election. So County Executive Alsobrooks has been very coy, if you could say that, about what particularly she will choose to do. It is ultimately up to her when she will resign from office. So we await her decision, but there are several candidates beginning to line up, including the current state's attorney, Aisha Braveboy, current council chair and newly elected at-large member, Councilmember Jolene Ivy, as well as the current outlier at-large member, Councilmember Calvin Hawkins. And I'm sure there will be a number of candidates entering the race that perhaps I did not mention and that I'm not aware of right now, but these are the candidates that have been discussed on the Washington Post, Fox 5, and everything of that matter. So we're going to have a shuffle here in Prince George's County. We could have a number of special elections even resulting for that. But an important note here I'll also mention is that these special elections will also be pretty costly. I believe it's, and I could be corrected if I'm reading this wrong, about like $4 million that will be paid for, just administering the election at the at-large level. In Councilmember Ivy's District 5 seat that she is vacating, it'll be about $600,000. Our guest, Dr. Phelton Moss, the newly elected or soon to be in office representative for Board of Education District 7 in Prince George's County. And I'll just let you introduce yourself and your amazing background, which I know a fair amount about, but I think you'll do a much better job of introducing yourself to our listeners. But yes, please introduce yourself to the listeners. And again, by the way, you can call in to join in on the conversation at 202-588-0893. 202-588-0893. All right, Dr. Phelton Moss, tell everybody who you are.
Hey Larry, it's good to be here with you, and excited to be on the show. Yeah, I'm Phelton Moss. I'm a former high school English teacher, two-time teacher of the year, and I was a middle school principal. Led a school from failing to successful down in Mississippi, and I currently serve as a college professor now. I originally moved here to work just at American University, but also got a chance to work for Congress and led education policy for the ranking member. And now I'm a tenure track professor of education policy and leadership in the Douglas Wilder School of Government down at VCU. Live here in Prince George's County in Suitland, Maryland. Just excited to be here and talk a little bit about our school board term that's coming up over the next 4 years. And again, thanks for having me, Larry.
Yeah, I'm glad to have you also. So, could you share with the WPFW audience, like, what particularly motivated you to run for the Board of Education? Was it something that you saw in terms of what was lacking in the school system or our current representation on the Board of Education?
Yeah, fundamentally what got me to the school board was when I bought a house here in Suitland, one of the first articles I saw was an article about school not being able to start because we didn't have enough classroom teachers and that would adversely impact students who lived in the southern parts of the county. And so that raised immediate concerns with me as someone who's done this work at the local level, at the state level, and the federal level, thinking about how do we ensure students have access to highly competent and overly amazing good teachers to provide high quality teaching and learning. And so that's when I started my journey of trying to understand what was happening in Prince George's County with regard to the quality of education. And so that compounded with the fact that our school board doesn't have representation of someone who's actually been a classroom principal on the board. And at the time, we had 9 school board members, only 4 of them had actually been classroom educators. And I thought many of the issues that we face would be solvable with someone who actually has direct education experience. Unfortunately, in many of the measures that matter to us around students being able to read, students being able to compute and do mathematics, we are competing with Baltimore City to be last or next to last in that regard. And so I thought it
Oh,
would make
yeah.
sense. It thought it would make sense at this juncture that we have folks on the school board who've actually taught classes, who've actually gotten results with young people, who've actually improved schools. And my opponent was not that person. So I decided to run for school board for that precise reason.
Yeah, so I understand that your opponent was some sort of rocket scientist or project manager. I don't know what he does at NASA particularly, but I believe now he'll have a lot of time to focus on that, perhaps. So you were the winner in this race, and it seems like you're coming in with a number of new Board of Education members. Could you say there is like a common vision that you perhaps share with some others for which you want to see accomplished in the school system?
I think what I'm so excited about is that my colleagues there are many of my colleagues on the board who already have direct education experience. But what the county has elected are a group of folks who have done the work. We won't be learning about how to move student achievement. We'll be able to partner directly with the administration, our teachers, our families, to think strategically from a policy perspective around what it means to provide kids in Prince George's County with a high quality education. So I love the vantage point of this team. You've got folks who are aligned on some key issues around making sure we deliver on a commitment to equity. This group of folks understands what it means to lean into what Mayor Church Terrell says so eloquently, that if we're going to climb, we've got to lift other folks up with us. And so that excites me about this team of board members that are coming on who've already rolled up their sleeves and gone to work, whether that's been a classroom educator, whether that's work as a consultant. Um, this group of folks that we've elected have spent portions of their life, tremendous portions of their life, working to deliver for young people. And I think that makes a difference, that we're not learning the importance of reading and math. What we're being is a strategic partner with our school district, our families, and our district leadership.
Sounds great. I mean, it sounds badly needed to be able to focus in, have a board of education that can focus in on the details when it comes to education policy. And I wanted to remind our listeners, if you'd like to join in on this conversation with any questions or comments for Dr. Moss, who will be a new member of the Prince George's County Board of Education, you can call in at 202-588-0893, 202-588-0893 for those comments or questions. So, given this victory here, what would you say, like, what would you say to some of the folks who are concerned? I've heard a lot of concerns from, people in the community about, like the efforts by the federal government to either defund the Department of Education or completely abolish it, or potentially, and enact punishments for schools and educators that teach about things like Black history. Um, I mean, where do you kind of stand on that? What do you think is going to happen with this new federal environment?
Yeah, no. So I thank you, Larry, for this question. One of the things I want to name, outright is, I worked federally with the House Ed and Labor Committee. And so the first tension is I think this is a bunch of much ado about nothing, in that, we didn't get a U.S. Department of Education until 1979. And there have been attempts by the Republican Party to abolish it since its inception, as early as Reagan, shortly afterwards, and now as late as Donald Trump. Even in 2023, there was an attempt by Republicans in the House to tag an amendment to the Parents' Bill of Rights, which is, I think, what you're talking about, which actually lays out these punishments that you've outlined, what parents can and can't. They've listed it as amassed it as a set of Parents' Bill of Rights, when really it's a takeover our school systems. But when they passed that bill in the House, they tried to pass an amendment that would abolish the U.S. Department of Education. 60 House Republicans joined Democrats and voted against the measure. And it takes congressional approval to be able to abolish the U.S. Department of Education. So I think Trump and friends and company have a great deal of work to do to be able to do that. But in terms of what's going to happen and trying to punish us, I think there will be attempts from the Office of Civil Rights. This will be the first time we see the U.S. Department of Education reverse civil rights in the way in which I describe it, in that what that office has traditionally done was tried to create equity, tried to create opportunity so all children can see themselves, have experiences that are validating for them. I think in the Trump administration, we'll see a very different Office of Civil Rights. What does that mean for local boards, though? We'll need to be on the front lines of that. I think we will need to advance, we'll need to advance policies with our state actors. At the end of the day, Trump says it best. The 10th Amendment, delegates powers to the state that have not been expressed by the federal Constitution. And so I think board members will need to stand up, working with our state partners to protect the honest and accurate teaching of Black history, to make sure our kids feel safe in our schools. So just like our governors are suiting up at the state level, our boards are going to have to suit up. To be quite honest, prior to us having federal oversight, it was school boards who were making decisions about kids. We didn't agree with those because it was dating back to Brown versus Board of Ed.
Yeah.
But I think we really have to suit up at the board level, Larry, and be prepared to fight against this. And then codifying our own board policies, where we stand on these issues around diversity, equity, and inclusion and access.
Yeah. Are you worried about, I know, local school systems receive, quite a bit of funding from the federal government. Is there anything that you're hearing about, that funding being at risk?
I would like the federal government to offer more than 10% of the money that district spends, but the federal share that local school district gets is only 10%, and much of that is caught up in Title I and
Yeah.
special education. And I want to name that there is a commitment from the Republican Party to defund Title I.
Really?
They don't appreciate the way the funding formula is laid out. But Project 25 clearly lays out that we need to defund it. And then last year, Republicans fought pretty hard. A year ago when Democrats were in charge, Republicans fought hard to defund Title One. When President Biden put forth his budget request this past year, Republicans put out something that was drastically lower. And then special education, which is a big one. We haven't fully funded it yet. Republicans haven't gone on base around it because I think they found it largely unpopular to do so. But Title One is in jeopardy under this Republican administration, and so you started this show talking about state dollars being down. We'll really have some tough decisions to make if Trump and friends have their way with Title One, which is about Title One was created to make up for what the states could not do to make sure under-resourced, underserved students had the access they needed to a quality education.
Yeah, what is their reasoning behind wanting to, move funding from something like that, like for just underserved, like special education students? Like, why are they interested in taking away money for that?
I mean, it boils down to you also see in the Trump plan a national movement towards vouchers and the privatization
Yeah.
of education. And so I think what you're finding is they're looking for dollars and cents to be able to do that. They've tested this out a good bit. Many of these Republicans say, the best way to ensure under-resourced and students who've been underserved get a better education is through a voucher system. Give their parents the dollars and let them decide where they want to go. And so they very much see Title One as a program where we can remove dollars from it and focus on national vouchers. So parents can have more choice. I think that's precisely why they want to get rid of it.
Got it. Well, one of the last questions I have for you, I'm very thankful for your time here with us today and just taking these questions. And once again, to our listeners, if you would like to get in on the conversation and talk to Dr. Moss before he has to go, you can call in at 202-588-0893. I just want to remind anybody who wants to call in, you can get in on the conversation that way, 202-588-0893. So I want to switch gears a bit to the topic of public safety within the schools. This is another area that I know listeners I've heard from in the past, and community members have been very concerned about just sometimes the violence that's going on in schools, and quite a few parents don't feel safe in certain schools. So, what particularly are your thoughts on the issues of safety in Prince George's County Public Schools and how we can ease some of those people's concerns?
Yeah, I think this, as someone who's been an educator, former teacher, middle school principal, I think we've got to make sure all of our actors are safe. That's including our teachers, our bus drivers, as well as our students. And so I think we have a great deal of work to do from a safety perspective. I think the district has started to move the needle around safety a good bit, but we still have schools that, do not have full-time resource officers. And I've got my thoughts on how we should deploy those in such a way where we're not adding to the school to prison pipeline and that they're providing, safety trainings for young folks and in that way. But, we still don't have crossing guards in some of our most populated areas where kids are actually walking home every day. So all the way down to that level, all the way to the fact we've still got kids who are bringing weapons to school, or we see, issues on buses and whatnot. And so, I think we need to comprehensively understand where we are from a safety perspective. But we've got to also partner with our students and our parents to get them to understand best practices in safety. We've got to also invest in mental health services to make sure we're appropriately identifying when students are depressed or when they're going through something that might lead them to some form of violence. We've got to be clear about that. But ultimately, from one perspective that I continue to say that even board members should be advocating around is, we've got to get these weapons off the streets so that they don't get into the hands of our young folks. And so we've got to have both state and federal policy that's aimed at doing that. But I really think that All the actors in the county have to come together. Our school violence issues are not just the responsibility of the district. We've got
Yeah,
violence in the county. And so we've got to bring our heads together and do all of this good work together to provide for a
yeah,
safe community. I think that's the starting place. But we've got some equity concerns at the district level that need to be addressed. Some schools have access to certain safety protocols and procedures and persons and resources, and others don't. And so
yeah.
fundamentally, we've got to start there.
So, Dr. Moss, I don't know if you've got time. It looks like we have one caller. Do you have time to hear from one of our callers here?
Absolutely.
Oh, we've actually got two callers on the line. So, come on, step right on up to your phone. You're on the air for Community Watch and Comment with Larry Stafford and Dr. Phelton Moss. What is your comment or question? And where are you calling from? What's your name and where are you calling from, too?
My name is Yolanda, and I'm calling from Maryland. I'm in the Capitol Heights area, and
Okay, great.
I wanted to first say congratulations to Dr. Moss on the win. We always need strong people there to support our children and the curriculum that governs our children. I wanted to say over the years, I've seen where we need to put something in place that supports the parent and the child outside of the school hours, because that's where we lose most of our children. And the other thing I wanted to say was have all the great minds in all the states that are facing this threat against the educational system got together. If y'all could get together and do a conference together and come up with a strategic plan to attack this Project 2025 at the same time, and everybody is on the same mindset and the same accord. That's my statement.
Thank you so much. All right. Dr. Moss, you want to respond to that?
I do want to respond. So one, thank you for your congratulatory message. And I want to speak to your concern around building a system of supports for after school. I mean, that's the second item on my platform, is that, it was an after school program that actually saved my life, that kept me from getting into gang violence where I grew up and things of the like, because I attended an after school program and had folks who had enough vision to be able to do that. One of the things I'm really excited about in the county is that we have pockets of hope when it comes to after school programs. But, through policy and advocacy to our local district, you'll see me, advocate for systems of supports where we're coordinating all these after school services to ensure that we're able to make sure every kid has access to after school programs. I think there is a way for us to begin coordinating these efforts in a way that systematically makes sure every child has a safe place to go and to get kids off the street after hours. I live in my neighborhood. We had 20 car break-ins 2 months ago. They were all between the hours of 4 and 7. I think she has a legitimate concern that, I shared as well. I think we need to build an after school system where that's coordinated, at the district level with all these actors, because we do have after school programs in the county. It's just a patchwork. And so how do we work together with all these stakeholders to build some uniformity so that we can create access for young people? I was on a call last night with College Track that's over in Suitland. They've got 75 seats, but they're not all filled, which is a great place for 9th through 12th grade students who are college bound. And so that's the kind of coordination I think, you'll see me pushing and advocating for our district leadership to do to make sure kids have after school programs.
All right, and I think we have one more caller. Just your name, where you calling from? What is your comment or question?
Yes, my comment or question calling from D.C. is two-pronged, I suppose. One, if the doctor could explain and break down the recent trend over the last decade or so of toward charter schools, what that objective was supposed to achieve, everything from uniforms and other emblematic approaches that mimicked, I guess, parochial education in past decades. And number two, how the behavioral learning approach has affected the outcomes of student performance in the last, say, 15 or 20 years, particularly the trend toward charter schools. I really never was able to get a specific definition on why and wherefore of charter schooling.
Yeah, I think you ask a really great question. So, charters came about because Milton Friedman wrote a report decades ago that talked about the need for, which was an economist, who talked about the best way to provide a high quality education is a parent's choice in the system. The other reason why, charters have come about is because, quite honestly, families were not happy with their public option. And when I was growing up, Larry, my grandmother told me that if you mind your business 100% of the time, you don't mind others 100% of the time, you'll be doing fine. I've tried to do that. I don't know why he has not, or if he plans to, for that matter. I'm staying focused on preparing to make sure on day one, which is December 2nd, we are there to fight on behalf of the children who need us most. And so I don't know what Mr. Harris will do, but I'm preparing for December 2nd and then our first board meeting, December 5th, as the voters have shared, and the voters have voted, and have said they wanted me as their school board member. So I'm doing everything in my power to prepare to do exactly what they've tasked me to do, and that's deliver results for young people.
Absolutely, and that makes perfect sense. So just hope that we don't have a storm Sasser, storm the school board kind of thing, like a January 6th locally, just the way that this gentleman has behaved. But community members are watching apparently with that petition. So all the best. Well, thank you, Dr. Moss, so much for your time and sharing with us your vision. We wish you the best of luck in what you're pursuing.
Thank you, sir. Good to have you. And I'm happy to come back anytime you need me.
Okay, so welcome back to Community Watch and Comment with your host here today, the co-host of this program, Larry Stafford Jr. Thank you once again for listening. So we just had our conversation with Dr. Phelton Moss, who is the newly elected representative to the Board of Education in District 7, sharing his vision for Prince George's County's school system here, and we'll keep up to date with what's going on with the public schools in Prince George's County, as we always try to do here on Community Watch and Comment. And we'll see what progress, he and others are able to make. Before we wrap our show, just wanted to close with some other headlines and some upcoming events as well. So there, as many people know, with this election of Donald Trump coming into the White House, there's quite a bit of concern from those who care about our undocumented friends and neighbors and sometimes even family members, and what they could be facing next year as President-elect Donald Trump has continued to proclaim his commitment to mass deportation effort in this country. So that's a big concern for many people in the country right now, and definitely in our region, where we have over 300,000 undocumented people living just in Maryland, actually. And I know there's been a lot of political dialogue and rhetoric, certainly, attacking those who are in this country, many of which just trying to survive and fleeing from untold violence in their home countries and looking for a better life. And so wanted to share that groups like Casa de Maryland and some other legal actors are beginning to prepare for this, and they're filing many legal actions to safeguard immigrant rights before the election. So just a reminder, folks, I think many folks should look into talking to an immigration attorney or connecting with groups like CASA for direction on either how to protect yourselves or some people that you care about. I was on a drive last night in a cab coming from the airport, and my driver was somebody who shared with me that they're on a temporary protective status. So even folks who were legally granted permission to come here are, facing a lot of uncertainty right now. And I just want to remind folks of that. And he says he doesn't know where he will go. He actually is somebody who came from Sudan during a time of great, war and strife in his home country. And he does not want to go back, and he does not feel that he's able to, and he doesn't know where else he would be able to go. And so that's a lot of the very real life consequences of this election. And so my only ask for folks is to look out for those in our community who could be quite a bit more vulnerable now after these federal election results. So that's what I just wanted to share for a moment. And then we've got some upcoming events in the community. I'll share a few of those that I got in. There will be an event at the Goethe Institute. I think that's how you pronounce that, in Washington, D.C. They're hosting Colonialism and its Impact on Political Solidarity today. That is going to be Friday, November 22nd, 2024 at 6 o'clock p.m. at the Goethe